Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our application season masterclass. We'll get rolling here in just a minute or two. We'll give some time for everybody to get logged in and get situated. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries if you have noise in the background. We can't see or hear you. If you do have a question, please drop them in the Q&A feature. Should be along the bottom of your screen. The chat is there as well. Chat is great just for letting us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, but questions do tend to get lost in that. So use that Q&A feature. We'll try to answer as many of those as we have time for. We are also doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're going to give away a handful of hunt consultations with the folks at Huntin. So you do have to be present towards the end of the class when we drop that link in the chat. And with that, it looks like people are rolling in here, so we might as well kick it off. My name's Jack Hedlund. I work here at onX Maps on the marketing side of things. I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking tonight. I'm going to let the experts from Huntin join. I have in studio Robert Hanneman.
Yeah, up here, live next to Jack in Montana, so just able to stop in here at the onX office and jump on this. And the rest of the boys are down there in Utah. I can see on the computer screen.
Yeah. So I'm Garth Jensen. You might remember me from past webinars that we've done in the past. Yeah, me and Austin are down here in Utah. Worked for Huntin for about 11 years now. We're kind of winding down to the application season, and so we're just kind of heading into the season where now it's exciting because we get guys that have drawn tags, and that's what we're taking calls about. But there is still a couple deadlines left, which we're going to touch on.
And I'm Austin Atkinson, also here in the Cedar City office full time. I enjoy this time of year and hate this time of year because it is stressful. So it involves a lot of late nights. Just so you understand, Robert and Garth, they've been on calls literally all day, helping people plan their strategy, helping the last minute guys try to get applied in some of these states, and talking to guys that have drawn permits already and they're excited and they're planning. So that's our full-time job. It's exciting. But like I say, it brings an amount of weight on your shoulders as you're trying to help people plan once in a lifetime trips or their first trip out west. So it's a rewarding job, but lots going on this time of year in the Huntin office. That's for sure. So we'll kick off into some of our presentation here. We want everybody to remember there is, if you have an onX Elite membership, which you all should, I hope it's the best value out there. You can also get a free digital membership to Huntin just by validating with your onX Elite membership over on our website. And that gives you all of our research that we produce in our magazine, which is available digitally on the website. You can talk to previous tag holder lists, those that have had tags where you might be going this fall. You can get in on giveaways, notifications, draw cost calculator, all our draw odds tools. Everything on our website is available to you just by validating your onX Elite membership. So please take advantage of that and start planning better. Jack, we've done a few master classes just with the Huntin team here this year so far, and we've got more to come. But you can always go back on the YouTube channel on onX and see our past ones. We did a big one on Colorado changes, applications for new guys. So check those out. And this one will be posted later on YouTube as well if you need a reference back to anything.
Yep, and I forgot to mention that at the outset. Everybody watching will get an email tomorrow evening with that YouTube link. So if you can't find it right away when we upload it tomorrow, about this time tomorrow evening, you'll get an email from us with the link to that YouTube video so you can go back and rewatch it.
Perfect. I want everybody to remember tonight, we've kind of titled this upcoming deadlines, which can mean a lot of different things, where there's still some states that have not ended yet and you still have time to apply. But definitely jump over to the Q&A feature. So not the chat feature, that's where you can say hello, but jump over to the Q&A and submit us your questions. We're watching those live and we'll kind of tailor some of our comments and do a bunch of Q&A sessions after. So if you got a specific question on any of these states or something application related, throw it in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen and we can see those and jump on them. Sound good?
Sounds great to me.
So the 4 states we're going to talk about this evening are upcoming. The first one being Utah. You can see there at the top, we're going to talk Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and Nevada. They're kind of the next up states. When we planned this masterclass for April 23rd, we said, hey, that's really close to the Utah deadline, like about 26 hours out from the Utah deadline. So we're staring down the barrel of the Utah application deadline. That's tomorrow, April 24th. So we wanted to talk through a little bit about Utah. It's resulted in hundreds of calls the last couple of weeks here in our office with their fee changes and everything that's going on in Utah, people trying to decide. So we want to visit about Utah for a few minutes here first.
And I don't know what to say other than this year is a good year to apply. Next year is an okay year to apply. I mean, Utah's a tough state if you're a non-resident, to be honest with you. Like general deer is honestly not that bad. Like when you get into states like Utah, you have like 1, maybe 2 species that are outliers that you can actually utilize that app fee that you're looking at for the non-refundable fees there and get some return on that investment. But not to say that general deer is a bad hunt. I mean, that lovely lady right there smashed that great buck on a general deer tag. I mean, so general deer is not a bad hunt. It's just not what most people think of when they're putting in for years and years. But you can draw those general deer in 3 to 5 years. But it is something you have to make sure and start building points for. Man, all the rest of those, if you're starting to apply right now, I hate to say it, but you don't have a guaranteed chance of drawing any of those tags for the rest of your life. Even if you're 20 years old and you start applying right now, I don't care if you're 16 years old and you start applying right now. Just the point system is so mature, unless they change the way they do that draw, it's going to be that way forever. But there is some random opportunities. So if you view Utah as a lottery, yeah, it's not bad, because if you do draw some of these tags, you know, they're great hunts. I would view Utah more for the general deer and the general elk as an opportunity type state. So I don't know what much more to say other than that.
I think that's where a lot of
Utah.
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, so like Garth nailed it. Think of it as a raffle. I mean, because when you look at the antelope units and their 1 in 100 draw odds for the random antelope, I mean, again, you may never draw some of those tags. And, you know, I think Garth summed it up the best. The general deer is kind of your best thing going there. But even some of our better general deer units are going to be 7 to 9 points this year. So, I mean, and if you get started today, point creep, you may not catch those. They could be 15-point units here in a short while. So I think if you're like an archery hunter or muzzleloader hunter, or you're looking to hunt units that are outside of what we consider the top general units, I think you can draw a tag on a regular basis. But again, like anything else, you get into the game and you want the best general unit, you still might be waiting a decade in between tags, you know, if that. So like I said, I think the cool thing about your state is just the over the counter, you know, spike tags and stuff like that. And, you know, that's one thing that keeps guys, you know, still applying, and you can get 2 years out of a license. That's the one thing, the two, it's like, I look at that $144 and I'm going to get hopefully 2 years out of that. But, if with the price of it, you just got to realize everything you're applying for is a raffle minus your general deer and your general elk.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people ask, should I keep applying because they feel vested or they feel committed to Utah? They say, yeah, I've been applying there a while. I got a lot of points. You know, I'm going to keep playing. Obviously, the term "a lot of points" is subjective. So if you've got between 10 and 16 points, in reality, that's not a lot of points for any of the limited entry hunts. So it seems weird to walk away from points, but if you're limited on your application budget, it might be better to spend that money elsewhere. Throw that $144 license and that'll buy all your points for deer, elk, antelope in Wyoming. I mean, there's other options out there than just keep playing the game in Utah. Why do people keep applying, or why do they start in Utah? It's because they have great trophy potential. And if you do get lucky, like Robert said, if you do win the lottery and there's some sort of random there, you can expect great hunts. But do you just play the game waiting to draw? No. Limited entry is all 50% preference, meaning those with the most points, and 50% random to everybody else. So you got a chance. And then general deer, as it's been said, is 100% preference, so you must have the points there. I would only recommend applying in the draw if you're brand new, just starting out, if you are interested in general deer or getting one of the true over-the-counter elk tags for some of the general seasons. Then it's worth it. If you're going to buy that license, make the investment, sure, apply in the draw, throw your name in for sheep or moose or whatever. It's just a small add-on cost. But if you don't have aspirations to come to Utah and hunt general deer or general elk, it's probably not worth your money, honestly.
Agreed.
Well, that's all we're going to say on Utah. You do have to apply by tomorrow night, April 24th, 11 p.m. Mountain Time. That's the deadline. And they'll run the draw pretty quick. Results mid-May.
Yeah, as soon as they finalize the tag quotas, they're running the draw.
There was a question about over-the-counter elk tags in Utah because we brought it up. In July, over-the-counter elk tags will go on sale. We cover that in our July magazine, which will be upcoming, tell you which units to look at, where you can go. But basically, archery, muzzleloader, or rifle, you can hunt the majority of the state. Some units you can shoot any bull elk you see. Some units you have to only shoot a spike elk. But there are tons of opportunities on public land. If you struck out everywhere else getting an over-the-counter elk tag, you want to just try your first archery elk hunt. Utah is pretty high up on the list for opportunity if you just want to get your feet wet elk hunting general season. Next date, it's coming up soon. May 1st is the deadline for Montana. Tell us about Montana, Robert.
Yeah, so Montana has a couple different draws. The deer and elk draw already took place. The results are out. This draw that's taking place May 1st is for sheep, moose, goat, and bison. You can also apply for antelope or cow elk at this time, but the only stuff due May 1st is the sheep, goat, moose, and bison. Montana's a little different on their tag allocation. They give up to 10% of the tags to non-residents. So it's not like in Nevada or Utah where they're setting aside this sheep tag will go to non-residents. You're going to apply alongside with residents, and they will give up to 10% of those tags. So they rotate the units that have less than 10 tags available, which is almost all of the units. So every year they change. So that's something you want to take a look at in the e-magazine. You know, if you're an onX member and you've validated your Huntin full digital account, and you can see what's available, or when you go to apply, it'll show it. You know, the odds are pretty tough. The bonus point system is fairly mature. They square the bonus points, you know, kind of like Nevada does. So even someone applying with their first year application, you know, you have a chance at drawing. So it's one of those where, you know, you're going to get roughly 5 to 7 Rocky Mountain sheep tags are typically drawn by non-residents. You know, goats, we usually see, you know, 12 or so, and Shiras moose is going to be, you know, somewhere between 12 and 18. And then bison will be 1 to 2. Bison, I have a hard time justifying applying for that as a non-resident, telling people, because the last couple of years, the bison haven't come out of the park. No one's killed any bison. So you draw this tag, you pay the money. The buffalo don't come out of the park unless there's snow. So it's not a good hunt. So I recommend guys take that money they would apply for bison, throw in for the super tag. It's $5 to put in for the super tags. If you draw that, you can hunt the wilderness hunt. The same one my kid killed the buffalo. Huntin Full's got it on their YouTube. That hunt you could experience. The only way as a non-resident is to draw that super tag. You draw that, you're going to kill a bison. It's awesome horseback hunt. You know, everybody used to say Montana had the biggest Rocky Mountain sheep in the West. We've kind of fallen off. You know, you're seeing big rams killed in Idaho, big rams killed in New Mexico. Oregon's producing 200-inch rams. The Missouri Breaks has had some die-offs. They closed unit 622 this year due to die-offs. 482 and 680, you know, they've cut tags. There's still potential of book rams there, but, you know, if we stay with these tag cuts for 3 or 4 years and we get some age class, I think you'll see 200-inch rams again in Montana. But it's one that everybody has a chance. It's not like a true preference point system. And if you're willing to, you know, put the $100 towards sheep, it's one more name in the hat to try to draw a sheep. Goats are good. You know, I'd say we give a lot of goat tags. You know, it's a easy do-it-yourself type hunt or outfitters. A lot of the stuff's in the wilderness. So I really recommend guys look at applying for goat. Moose, and if you draw a moose tag in Montana, you better be ready to spend 2 weeks to 3 weeks hunting moose to kill one. We do give a lot of tags, but I wouldn't say it's the best state to be applying for moose. I really like Idaho. But sheep and goats, man, those are like kind of must apply for me, at least for Montana, because of the amount of tags and the hunt you can do yourself or not. And again, we're going to produce 30 to 40% of the sheep killed in Montana, probably going to be record book quality type rams.
The other thing, Robert, I wanted to mention, if you are interested in the only over-the-counter Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep hunt that exists in the lower 48 is the unlimited sheep areas, the 5 units that Montana has available. Robert has been following and researching those units probably since the day he was born, and he puts a lot of that information in our May magazine, or in the April magazine.
Isn't that an unlimited ram that's on there?
No,
Oh, that's not an unlimited.
that one is a draw tag.
Yes,
But
that is a draw tag. No, the unlimiteds are great. Yeah, I kind of left that out, not on purpose. Was just thinking about the deadlines, and if you want an unlimited tag, you have to buy it by May 1st. Non-residents going to pay $1,250. Me and Jack are going to pay $125 because we live here. There's roughly 100 tags sold for each of the 5 units. They all have different season dates. The quota is 2. Once 2 rams are killed, the quota is going to close on a 24-hour closure. It used to be a 48. And then if you kill a ram, you have 24 hours to report it. You have 72 hours to get it checked in. It has to be a legal ram, kind of similar to Alaska, but it's got to be a 3/4 curl. There's no age or anything like that. In Montana, Wild Sheep Foundation invested in and built, sounded like a jig that they're using with some lasers to kind of make sure these rams are legit. And I know they ran a lot of rams through it last year. And I think one got pulled out, not legal, but the rest were legal. So super cool opportunity. But you got to be tough as Garth Jensen and like to wrestle grizzly bears, spend some time in the backcountry.
I think that would eat my lunch.
we call it I call it often an over-the-counter sheep hunt, and it is, but the May 1st deadline is the deadline to either purchase that true over-the-counter, buy it now sheep permit, or apply in the draw for the unlimited sheep permit. And that'll give you a little more grace period, because when results come out, they'll say, hey, you drew it because it's 100% draw. And then you got a little time before you have to actually purchase it, and you could decide to not purchase it. So it buys yourself a little time, but you can't decide in July or August that, hey, I want to go try the unlimited sheep area, because you have to play in this game by May 1st.
Yeah, there's 10 to 12 rams killed every year. That's roughly 2% success rate. Austin, you're great with numbers. Where do I have 2% draw odds of drawing a sheep tag in the West?
Very few, especially without max points.
Exactly. So I mean, it's really some guy's only chance ever to hunt sheep, and it's awesome country. You get to see some really cool stuff. Usually up north of Yellowstone, but it's an adventure. And if that's something the guy's looking for, you can go into the April magazine and read all about it. But yeah, it is a place where I have a sheep tag this year. I mean, but I have a sheep tag every year.
Are they filling those quotas any faster, or is it about the same?
It depends every year. Like the unit I was in last year, the second ram was killed in a couple days, and the season ended. The populations are doing really well throughout most of those units. And it just kind of depends on what the weather is. Is it rams in visible locations? If they're not in visible locations, some years, some of those 500 units have closed in 4 days. And then the next year it's open until December 1st. It's just, it's so hit or miss, on those units.
And you can't bounce around. You have to select the unit at the time that you apply or purchase that license. It's not like if your unit quota closes, then you can bounce to another unit.
Yeah, it's not like your Arizona deer where they've filled the quota here. I'm going to
Yeah.
go to the unit. There's 5 units. There's 2 units in the 300, kind of around the town of Gardner. Unit 300 has a 10-day season, September 1st through the 10th. And then the rest of the 4 seasons open on September 15th and go through the Sunday after Thanksgiving, unless the second ram is killed and the quota closes. Take that back. 303 does close the end of October, because if you go down there in November, you're going to see 40 or 50 sheep, because they all migrate out of Yellowstone. So some of these units, most of these units have native sheep that are living in them. Some of them have Yellowstone sheep that influx in and out. Unit 502 has some Wyoming sheep that'll come into winter. But these are all native sheep. They've never been transplanted. These have been native. So it's kind of a really cool thing. And the Montana biologists keep this going. And, when you think there's 500 people that are getting tags to hunt sheep, the unlimited sheep opportunity for hunting has literally put more guys on the mountain hunting sheep than every other Western state, every other tag they've ever given. There's tons and tons of people, from every state that come and hunt these rams, and, maybe a third of them are killed by non-residents. And, it's where else do you get to hunt sheep, other than going up north and writing a big check?
It's interesting. We were talking about who should start applying in Montana, and mainly for these species above sheep, moose, goat. I mean, the big ones. And Montana used to feel expensive. I know when they went from 600 to 1250 for the tag, it's like, oh man, that's getting more expensive for a sheep tag. Well, Utah's like, hold my beer. We're going to charge 4,000 for a sheep tag next year. So
Yeah.
Montana's starting to feel a little cheaper. You're about $100 to apply for, say, sheep alone. And yeah, you don't have a great random chance, but you got a shot for.
It's one of the cheaper applications, realistically, just to put your name in the hat for sheep, moose, or goat in any state at this point.
I know it's getting
You
expensive.
actually have a chance. It's not like half of the tags, like Utah, half those tags will go to guys with max points this year. Arizona, some of the percentage is going to go. Like every single sheep tag in Montana can be drawn with a guy that's never applied before compared to a guy that has, 20 plus points. It's just, where it's going to shake out.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's Montana, May 1st to apply there. So coming up here pretty quick. We'll jump a day earlier, April 30th. This is our Wyoming deadline. Now, Wyoming, they like to keep you on your toes and make it as confusing as possible as far as when you're supposed to apply. So Wyoming decides all their permit numbers, all their season dates, everything yesterday and today. So 3rd week of April, they make all decisions for all species, but they spread out their deadlines, with the first one being elk in January, April 30th for these species, and then May 31st for deer and antelope. Why they keep those split, I can't answer that definitively, but right now, April 30th is the deadline to apply for sheep, moose, goat, and bison. Now, this state, you can kind of consider each species individually. It's not like we look at Utah or Arizona where we say, if you buy the qualifying license, then add X species. You can look at Wyoming individually, say, I'm interested in elk, and just do elk. If you're interested in sheep, you can just do sheep, and it doesn't benefit you by adding on additional species at all. So there's a lot of guys out there that have been building points in Wyoming for sheep and moose, and they're realizing that their points may not ever help them draw a tag. So they're saying, what should I do? Do I stop applying and throw my points away? And then there's a whole wave of us new guys saying, hey, should I start applying in Wyoming? I hear there's a random chance. Well, we're going to show you kind of what your odds look like, but it might not be the state to throw your name in for these big species.
Well, honestly, if you look at it and take it for what it is, each one of those points that you have doesn't give you any more of a better chance of drawing than the guy next to you. They strip all your points in the random draw. And so those points don't do anything for you until you get enough points to actually be included in that preference draw, which I think that, I don't know, that bell curve is what, 24 for sheep, somewhere around there. What is it
for sheep and like 22, 23 for moose?
Yeah. So, if you're not sitting in that span, there's a good chance that those points are never going to do anything for you. So if you don't purchase that $150 preference point, even though you have that 2.5% processing fee and have to front the entire tag fee, still, if you get refunded, it's not as expensive as, say, Idaho or some of these other states. So we're almost getting to the point where it's like I can justify that crummy odds because it's cheaper than other states.
Sure. It is a product of odds versus how much you have to spend.
Yep.
At least, like if I was comparing it to Idaho sheep, I know there's going to be 10 non-resident tags spread across the state randomly. Where when we go to this Wyoming this year, based on what they approved this morning, there's only going to be one random sheep tag in Unit 5, and that's it.
You know what's crazy about that is when you think about it, Wyoming probably has one of the most prominent bighorn sheep populations in the West, right? I mean, they have a fairly good population of sheep. That's this. I mean, they give out more non-resident tags, so I shouldn't say it compares to California, but California also gives out one random desert sheep tag. So, but that's total for non-resident.
Well, and was it 2 years ago? Last year we didn't have a random sheep tag available. The year before that we did, and I think it was either 1 in 1,800 or 1 in 2,000 draw odds. So
Yeah.
that's what the draw odds were for Unit 5. And like I'm that guy. I'm the guy Austin's talking about. I have 22 points for goat and moose because 2 years in college I forgot to send a $7 check, or else I would have 24 and I'd be in the running. So I'm at that situation where it's like, do I keep buying points until they figure out what they're going to do? And my answer was yes. But if I didn't have this many points, probably would have stopped buying points. But Wyoming keeps teasing us with like, we're going to go random. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm just eating the money, the $300 for the 2 points every year until they figure out what they're going to do. Once they figure out this is exactly what we're going to do, then I'll justify if I keep buying points or if I just stop and go random with my 20 whatever points I have at that time.
They're just toying with you. They know they got you on the hook for
For
2
$300 a
decades of
year.
applying.
Yeah, $300 a year. They're like, let's just see how long we can drag him along.
Yeah. For Shira's Moose, we've got 3 random licenses, but it's essentially the same thing. So there is a preference draw for 75% of the permits there for sheep and moose. But like we say, if you're below that curve, which most of you probably are, just focus on the random. So then you have to say, is it worth fronting the entire license fee, paying the extra processing fee, and letting them keep my money for a few weeks to see if I get lucky in the random? Maybe if you want to play that game. Me personally, for example, I would rather throw my $150 elsewhere into another raffle from a sheep foundation or some other organization to just spread my odds out and not dump it in on a state draw.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's getting, and every year it seems like there's more and more opportunities for raffles and lotteries and things like that. Hell, even in the state, you can throw your name in the hat for that. It just, I don't know. I don't know what your odds would be if they'd be any better in some of these lotteries, but at the same token, they can't be any worse.
Yeah.
So one thing about these units, Unit 5 is the random sheep unit. You got to remember that if you are a non-resident, you draw that tag, you cannot hunt inside the designated wilderness without a guide or a Wyoming resident. There is rams that get killed outside of the wilderness in Unit 5, but most of them are killed in the wilderness. So you're going to have to, either get a resident to go with you or go with an outfitter. So that's another kind of hang up that, you can't go and hunt just because you drew the tag in the wilderness. You're going to have to get a resident or an outfitter. And then kind of below that with those moose units, 25 has a ton of private land. It's one that, yes, you can kill a bull on public, but the better bulls are on private. So if you're more of a DIY hunter, look at 26 or 38 if you're going to be throwing your app in. And of those 3, 38 will definitely be the kind of trophy unit of those. But one thing to remember on Wyoming is that wilderness law is terrible. I mean, it's a welfare system for outfitters. There's no other way to say it.
I mean, it's similar for a lot of the mountain goat areas too. I mean, most of those goats are killed in the wilderness.
Yep. Yeah, up on the Montana border, you might catch some just outside of the wilderness, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. Mountain goat and bison, totally random, no points. So if you can justify the upfront cost, they'll send most of it back to you. If you don't draw, you can put in for that. The bison harvest success has been very low.
What does that tag cost?
Oh man, that's an expensive one.
Like $5 or $6 grand.
It is.
And I think they did kill a couple of them outside the park. So it's not as bad as Montana when it comes to that, but it's close. There's been a lot of years where those bison just sit there.
As far as other things, I mean, that sounds very discouraging about Wyoming. You're like, okay, I'm out, but we love Wyoming. Elk, deer, and antelope. So elk, like we said, you have to apply by January 31st every year. They basically make you apply blind. Pick a unit that might be a hunt, might not be. Then they sit on your money until April. 3rd week of April, like I said this morning, they finalized all their seasons for elk. And now they say, okay, here's the actual hunts you could apply for. Here's all the hunt season dates, license quotas, everything. And you can modify your application before May 8th. So that's the real deadline to decide if you're going to switch the unit or withdraw, and they'll just send you a refund. And then results will be out the middle of May. The same time that's happening, we can apply for deer and antelope, but you don't have to apply in the draw in Wyoming for elk, deer, or antelope unless you want to be in the draw to get a preference license or to get a random shot. The cheapest way is just buy a point, and that'll be July through October. I've got the prices there in the bottom: $52 for an elk point, 41 for deer, 31 for antelope. Just buy a point, accumulate some points, and then decide to actually apply in the draw. The only time you need to be fronting the license fee and putting in is when you want to go that year, you want a chance at pulling the license. Once you pull it, your points are purged. There's no way to return your tag or extend it. You're kind of stuck with it on that year that you get it.
That's a good problem to have.
Those preference points too, like you can see the prices on there, those are for adults. If you got kids, they're only $10 a point. So, build those for your kids because you're saving some money at $10 a pop, building those points until they turn 18.
Definitely recommend it for everybody. Deer, elk, and antelope. Deer are coming back. A couple of years, they'll be better on the western part of the state. Antelope, they're up and down. There's no reason to not get an antelope tag when you want it. And then elk, man, if you don't have an elk hunt in Wyoming planned sometime in your future, you probably need one.
Yeah, there's too many opportunities up there for those species not to get in and build points for those. It should definitely be on everyone's portfolio when it comes to drawing different states and adding those, every few years.
My strategy, and I'm not perfect here, but I apply in the draw by January 31st, just put my name in and then see some other draws, see what else comes about. And then by May 8th, then you can change your application. So I just put that on your calendar for every year. Plan on putting in for elk in Wyoming in the draw and then change if you need to.
The only thing I don't like about this system is they call me and Garth and, blow us up the last week of January. We tell them everything. And then from today, when the results come out until May 8th, our phones ring again. So it's
It's
almost
a
like
start over.
we're consulting twice on Wyoming. And it's a lot.
It's messy. There's a little bit of a grab. You say, why do they do that? Well, these states are trying to be first to sell, right? So everybody's trying to get earlier and earlier. Idaho likes to be first at the crack in December to sell tags because maybe they can secure more funds before people decide on the other states that are essentially their competition. So that's why they keep staying early, because they want you to commit and give them the money early on rather than waiting till a late draw where you say, oh, my schedule's full, and then you don't apply.
I'll tell you what, thank God that they're all not the same. Can you imagine the size of that Huntin full dictionary if they all had to be applied by March? That'd be great.
Okay, let's jump over to Nevada. Nevada's coming up pretty soon. May 7th is the hard deadline for all of the primary draw.
And points.
I like Nevada. I was born and raised there. I love the opportunity. But again, it's one of those states kind of like Utah where it's not for everybody. I mean, they allow us to apply. They have 3 different sheep there: Rockies, Calis, and deserts. As non-residents, we can only put in for California and deserts, and there's going to be just shy of 20 tags available just for non-residents in those. They give us a mountain goat tag as well. There's great elk hunting there, as you can see that bull in the picture. They've got some decent deer hunting. Antelope hunting can be great. So lots and lots of opportunity. The majority of the state's public land, but there's just not a lot of animals. Nevada's desert, and there's not a lot of tags. So, it's one that, again, it's Montana's, preference point system or bonus point system where everything is squared. But you could go a lifetime and not draw. So like how, I always tease Garth. He's got, I think, 20 plus deer points, and but he's holding out for something special. And I'm willing to hunt garbage units, or what most people think are terrible units, and I get a tag on a more regular basis. But if you were just a rifle deer hunter and you were only trophy deer hunt 180 plus, didn't want to hunt lesser units, you could go your whole life and never draw a tag in Nevada, and that's the honest truth. I mean, it is very difficult to draw the better deer tags, the elk, the sheep, all that stuff. So it's kind of one you got to really look at hard. If you're an archery deer hunter, or muzzleloader deer hunter, you should draw a tag every couple of years, based on some of the central Nevada units or the Northeast units. But man, if you're really just a trophy hunter and you're a rifle hunter, and you're looking at just getting started, I love the state personally, but it might be kind of hard to justify if you were just a deer and elk guy. If you're, really wanting to kill a desert sheep, Nevada's going to give more desert sheep than every other state. Arizona will be second. But the odds of drawing those are tough. I mean, I got 26 points for sheep in Nevada, and I got a 1% chance. 26 years ago, with no points, I had a 1% chance. So that just tells you, people continue to apply. We can say Montana, 2099, I had a better chance of drawing than I did today if I was to apply with the points, max points. So, I mean, the population has stayed the same, but there's more people applying. Social media, everything else, the internet, it's easier for us to swipe a credit card and apply for any of these states. So you're seeing so many more people apply. So Nevada to me is awesome. It's like one of my must apply states, but I'm not looking for the top deer units. I did draw an elk tag. Garth's drawn an elk tag. Austin's drawn an elk tag. We've all three had antelope tags in the last couple of years. I've had a bunch of deer tags. Austin drew a ewe sheep tag. So, I mean, we've all hunted Nevada and we love it. But in reality, like cow elk, Garth hunts that on a regular basis. You're not going to.
Now I won't. Thanks, Robert.
Well, you brought up the unlimited sheep, so I'm throwing cow elk on right now. But I mean, it's a great state. I love it. We've all taken advantage of it. Lots of public land, but in reality, when you buy that license, you apply for the species. Maybe I throw in for the Silver State tags, which are essentially a raffle. But the reason I like the Silver State tags is I throw in for the Silver State tags, $25, I believe. And Jack's, he works for onX. He usually drops 20 grand on a raffle. So in reality, the Silver State tags won't allow him to do that. Every one of us can only buy one. So that's one thing I do like about the Silver State opportunities. And if you draw it, it's a governor's tag. But, when it's all said and done, you can drop $300 in Nevada super fast. Yep. And if you're only looking for the best of the best, you may go a long time without ever getting a tag. So you got to really think about what you want to do. I mean, I would justify Nevada over Utah, personally. But it's one of those things where every tag's available to everybody, but you got to get lucky and lightning's got to strike.
But Robert, I wouldn't say that we all look at states differently, either as an investment, like I'm building points and there's light at the end of the tunnel, or throwaway donation money where, yeah, I'm building points. They give me a point to make me feel better. But me personally, I apply in Nevada with throwaway funds as it's a donation. I'm never going to count on getting a tag there, but just looking at the opportunities, I really want a desert sheep someday. I love the opportunity to hunt ewe sheep where it's a separate draw category. It's not going to use my ram points. I can put in for goat. I can put in for California sheep. So that essentially to me is it's throwaway. If you can justify the $200, $250, put in for it, forget about it, forget about how many points you have, and just hope. That's all you can do.
Yeah, no, it's a lottery. I mean, at the end of the day, most of that is going to be a lottery, with the exception of some of the, like the archery deer or early rifle deer that you can't take advantage of more often. And at this point, that's kind of what I chalk it up to. When I first started applying there, I had high hopes, but I've kind of come to the consensus that there's certain things that just, they're throwaway funds. I'm going to donate my money. And I'll be honest, like if I was a non-resident in both states, Utah and Nevada, I'd probably opt for Nevada just for the simple fact that all of the tags are random. Yep. Like there's not a percentage of those tags that are going to go to top point holders, which most likely none of us will ever be in the state of Utah. And you don't need to be that in Nevada to have a chance at every single tag that comes out.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not picking on any other state and how they manage their wildlife. But I think Nevada does a world-class job. I mean, the people that work there, the biologists, I mean, they are dialed. They're out there doing boots on the ground surveys. I mean, they want to see more sheep on the mountain. They're always transplanting stuff, trying new things. Again, their buck to doe ratio, like a lot of the units, they're going to have 30 plus bucks per 100 does, or like, next door in Utah, you guys are going to have, half of that or a little bit more. So, Nevada, they try to give people the opportunities, but I like it. The whole, donation thing, I never think I'm going to ever draw, a desert sheep tag in Nevada or Arizona, but like, same thing when I give that money, like I know it's going to a good cause. If it was a state, not picking on any other state, but was not doing good with their way they managed wildlife, Washington, just throwing it out there, then that wouldn't be a donation. But like Nevada, I think they do an awesome job. They do so much guzzler work, and there's a lot of, organizations that help them do that, but they're super pro wildlife and they're on it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I love Nevada.
Yeah, they are on top of it. If they could just figure out how to manage their horses, which it's totally hands off, like they would be doing phenomenal things. But those horses in the drought just kick them every time.
That is the worst part about it. Like there's just certain things that are out of control of biologists and the wildlife, at least, the Nevada Wildlife Department. They can't do anything with that. So it's almost a moot point. Sucks.
Last thing there, it like I mentioned, the U draw for sheep and the ram draw, totally separate points, separate draws. You can apply for both. And same thing for elk, antlerless elk and the bull elk hunt, separate draws. So it's not like in Arizona where if you apply for a cow hunt, you lose all your bull points. They are separate. So look at all those opportunities when you're applying. And like Robert mentioned, Silver State, 1 entry max for each species. And same with a PIW drawing, which is deer only for non-resident, but it's 1 entry max. So some neat opportunities to kind of equal the playing field. And if you're already spending that $200-ish, you might as well spend a little more and throw your name in the hat.
I got to circle back to the feral horses. Like, I don't think most people understand what the impact of those horses are on the range. And like, I live up here in Montana near Jack. I've seen what wolves have done to Montana, what they've done to Idaho, what they've done to Wyoming, now Oregon and Washington. I would rather have wolves than wild horses. That is the honest truth. They just absolutely destroy the habitat. And then, I mean, it's not like they're out there killing the deer, but they take the water, run them off, eat the feed, tear the feed up. I mean, it is the landscape in Nevada when you go out there on an elk hunt or a deer hunt and you're seeing, like, a perfect example. I went antelope hunting in northern Washoe with my son 4 years ago, and we kept a tally, and for every one antelope we seen like 15 wild horses. It is absolutely ridiculous. So I just, again, I hope somehow they figure out what to do, or I hope somehow we figure out how EHD will start killing horses or something, but it's out of control in Nevada.
Yeah, they got to do something to curtail that population. I mean, maybe with the administration we have, we might see something changed on that Wild Horse and Burro Act. But yeah, it's just it's bad because on years like this where it's been pretty droughty throughout that state, you're going to see a lot of those horses die. They're just going to starve to death. Like they're going to choke to death, starve to death. And know this, if they're choking to death and starving to death, there's a fair amount of wildlife that's doing the same thing, all because the federal government has refused to manage that population of horses and allow them to overrun all the habitat.
Yeah. It is, I mean, we talk about wolves, we talk about CWD, but for this portion, the Western Utah, all of Nevada, it is going to be the most catastrophe, like the biggest catastrophic impact of the century. It has to be.
Yeah.
They're just not doing anything, so not too many people talk about it.
Yep.
So May 7th, there will be a secondary draw later, but if you want to get in on the primary draw and have your name in the hat, May 7th is your deadline for Nevada. Pretty easy system to apply if you've never done it before. Pretty easy to do on your own. Of course, if you need help in any of these states, we can help you at Huntin Full with our application services. So just a few last tips that apply to all these states. When you look at draw odds, remember you're looking at last year's draw odds. It's a snapshot of the past. So take everything for what it is. If it's saying that not everybody drew at your point level, it means that's going to jump up a point level for this year, at least. Because everybody creeps up together on a lot of these preference draw states. But for the random draw, like a Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, for the random side, definitely go to your hunt research tools and you can see your true random odds and see if that is within your tolerance. Me personally, I have a tolerance that's made up, but it's in my mind. If I look at a 1 in 2,000 type odds, that's not worth very much money to me because those are super long odds. Now, if I look at something that's 1 in 200 or 1 in 100, I can stomach a little more out of pocket cost for what that is. But look at your odds and see what it tells you if you feel like it's worth it. Is
I
that
agree.
fair?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it's all about cost benefit analysis, right?
It is, and it's different for everybody, but don't waste your money on a state that doesn't make sense to meet your goals long term, unless it's just throwaway raffle money, then that's okay. Donate it and try to get lucky. But the idea of I'll just start and build points now, and in 10 or 20 or 30 years, I'll have all these great tags, that might not be true on the states you've chosen. So let's look carefully at it.
I do like that state you had a slide up on though. Arizona, that's
Arizona?
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those examples are tough, but that being said, it's 18 points, but
But you can find a hunt
you can find
by
a hunt.
searching through those odds. And say,
Exactly.
I don't want a 2% odds for unit 23 elk.
Yep.
I want to go down to 6A elk. Oh, I got 15% odds. I can stomach the cost for that and shop for your hunts that way. Don't let odds be discouraging to you. Use them to your advantage to find out where you can go.
Yeah.
Like we always say as we're wrapping up, collect memories, not just points. Points don't always equal quality. Let's come up with a multi-year plan. I know there was a question earlier. What if I build these points and then I end up moving or retiring to that state later? In most cases, your points transfer with you. There's a few exceptions, but most of the time your points that you've earned are yours. And if you become a resident in that state, it may be substantially easier for you to draw once you move there.
One thing to also remember about points, the only reason I'm bringing it up because I had a conversation with an individual today, and he had a substantial amount of points in Utah, and we were looking at a few hunts. And he was looking at hunts that last year required one more point than he had. I said, well, it's not likely then you're probably going to draw that because you're going to be chasing and, with that few tags. Why don't we look at some of these other hunts that, quite frankly, could be drawn right now that took, 2 or 3 points less last year? And he says, well, I don't really want to go backwards. I'm like, well, if you have that thought of going backwards, if you draw something that you could have drawn, and his theory was, well, I could have drawn these 2 years ago. So I'm wasting my points. And I'm like, well, not necessarily. Your points are giving you options. If you don't take advantage of some of those options you have, and you keep thinking you need to maximize the amount of points, meaning you draw something at 22 points that takes exactly 22 points, you might not ever go hunting because you're constantly going to be chasing that next thing. And the reality is the units that we were looking at were just as good a hunts that he could have drawn as the ones we were actually looking at that took a couple points more. Just so view those points as giving you options, and don't necessarily set aside those ones that you may or may not have been able to draw the year or two for.
Well, and something can always change too. That tag allocation can change. In a unit you've had in your back pocket for 5 years is now 2 points ahead of you.
Exactly.
And like Utah, the same example, 2012, there was 4, I would say middle of the road archery elk tags I could draw. Fast forward from 2012 to 2015, I can still only draw those 4 units. I haven't gained a unit.
Yeah.
I think the only way I'm ever going to draw a great tag is if I come down and live down there and work in the office with you guys. But it's just, it's
hey, we'll carve out a little nook over here for you. Stick you in there with a computer and a desk.
I like working out of Montana. It's too
Yeah, so keep that in mind. Of course, like we mentioned in the beginning, we'll get to some Q&A, but activate your free digital membership. I've been sending some messages to some questions already on how to do that. So definitely do that. If you want to upgrade to a full membership, we do provide onX Elite discounts, one-on-one membership where you can talk to the hunt advisors, help us plan we can help you plan your strategy, give you a discount, $85 a year. It's probably going to be the best money you've spent all year on your hunting strategy. So why not? Jack, you got a giveaway for those tuning in today.
Yeah, I just dropped it in the chat. I've also turned the chat off just for the time being so that the link doesn't disappear. Actually, I didn't send that to the whole group. Let me try that one more time. Now it's in the chat.
There you go.
So click on that link in the chat, or I have had some feedback from folks on other master classes that the link doesn't work for them. Some phones have a goofy, I think, security system or protocol that doesn't let you click on that link or open it up. You might have to copy and paste it into a browser or, write it down and type it in the good old fashioned way. We'll leave it open till midnight tonight. And I will send an email out to let everybody know that they've won. And then I'll pass your information to the folks at Huntin Fool, and you guys can get if you're one of the 5 winners, you can get one of your consultations set up.
Perfect. Check that link in the chat. And that's kind of the wrap up for the content tonight. We'll take any questions if you had any use that Q&A feature and we can answer a few, but we've answered some already. The biggest thing is plan early. Let's get you guys going down the right path, right? Because your funds are special, right? You only have so many of them, and we want you to spend as much time in the field as possible. So let's use that to your benefit. We're not paid by the states to get you to apply in states. Oftentimes, we will just tell you the truth and say, hey, you probably shouldn't apply there, and that's okay. Let's spend your money elsewhere. That's what we do in the office full time. And that's what we try to portray in our e-magazine. We write articles, how-to strategy. We tell you what to expect for each species, each unit. So it's kind of becomes your Reader's Digest of where and how to apply in all these states. And we want you to use it and take advantage of it.
Sweet. What questions we got?
Jack, you got any saved on your end you wanted us to answer live?
I didn't get a ton in, no, so I don't have any live ones for us. If folks, I guess this is kind of your speak now or forever hold your peace. If you have questions, drop them in the Q&A.
Yeah, there was a few questions about like, if I don't apply this year, are my points purged? Those are great questions. The thing is, all these states are so different, and they've all created their draw system, their point system almost on an island. They rarely talk to each other. And so they're all trying to be the best state, right? And have the best management and the best data. And so what happens is a state like Utah doesn't ever purge your points. Even if you die, your points stay attached to your customer ID. And then you've got states like Wyoming, if you don't participate for 2 years, boom, you're out. They purge all your points back to 0. Sorry. So every state is different. We try to cover all those quick answers in our magazine, in our e-mag, but there's not one answer for all states. And I think that's where guys get screwed up. I'm building points in Wyoming, and so I should build points in Nevada because they equal the same thing. And they don't. It's a totally different draw process. So there may not be a guaranteed tag ever in Nevada, and there is in Wyoming. So just take everything individually. We'll look at your strategy as a whole for all the states and all the places you want to hunt, but realize all states are different. There was a question about Nevada. We talked about silver state tags, which are governor type tags. If you get lucky and draw that, we've known some that have drawn, you get to hunt anywhere in the state with a rifle. Big season. The PIW is called Partnership in Wildlife. That is an opt-in program. You basically pay $11 for deer, and it's saying you can hunt any open season in any unit in the state, but you have to follow that weapon and those season dates, and you can jump around. So it's kind of like you drew all the units at once, but you can only kill 1 deer type scenario. That's what that is. Then Nevada also has a dream tag, which is another way to collect money, and that's a fundraiser, but that's unlimited entries, basically $5 each, and you can flood it. You can just buy one, make yourself feel good. So states are realizing that just the state draw is not enough to attract everybody and to generate enough funds. So they start things like super tags, dream tags, super raffle, to give really great opportunities. They're usually from the state, but not part of the state draw. So it's separate. Let's see.
Just to kind of touch on, is like, this is a great selling point for being a one-on-one member with Huntin Fool. We're talking about 22 different states and how everything is different. If you are a one-on-one member with Huntin Fool, you can call in, talk to me, Garth, Eric, Logan, Hunter, any of the other guys, and ask these kind of questions and go over this stuff. I mean, if you're applying in multiple states, it is super complex, and it's pretty nice to be able to pick up the phone and ask questions. So this is a great way if you're one of those guys that lots of questions and really likes to talk to someone instead of just read stuff. you know, the Huntin Full one-on-one membership is probably just right for you.
Yeah, and a phone call, you can go through so much more in-depth knowledge and answer pointed questions about draw specifics, how your points will affect you here, how long you're going to have to bank points over in here if there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can answer that a lot more efficiently just by picking up the phone than trying to muddy through that state, you know, regulations or something like that. It just gets tough.
Couple questions we've got about how these draws work, and everything is so different, like we were saying, state to state. Some of these states you apply blind, not knowing how many permits there's going to be, like we talked about in Wyoming. Colorado is kind of the same way for elk and deer and these ones coming up, because they have to set the permit numbers after you've already applied. So there's a lot of people wondering, am I going to draw my archery elk tag that was over the counter last year? If I put it as my first choice this year, the answer is you should, but they also can't predict all the demand of what people jumped from different units. Now they have to pick an archery elk unit. We don't know, and we're not going to have those results till the end of May, but you should. So I think that covers, yeah. I mean, sky's the limit on questions. We feel you never know what's going to pop up here in the office, but it's what we enjoy doing. So definitely get in. And if you have questions about quotas, what was voted on in Wyoming specifically, there's some questions about general deer regions, general elk regions. Those numbers have been set today, so we can give you a better prediction of if you should draw or not. Anything else?
No, I mean, not for me. Sounds like we covered the deadlines coming up.
So talking about all these state raffles and hunt raffles and stuff like that, tell us about this Paunsaugunt deer hunt you guys are giving away. Cause I got to go on that when we gave it away 10 or 15 years ago and watched a guy shoot a buck.
Hey, the Paunsaugunt, I mean, that's why we came up with that opportunity, is you're about 1 in 2,000 type odds on the random odds to draw the tag. And so we bought a landowner voucher, which circumvents the draw, but that landowner voucher and a guided hunt for 9 days, it was $105,000.
Yeah.
So very expensive to shoot a deer. Is it worth that? Well, the demand says it is. So I guess it is worth that, but it is one of the best opportunities to shoot a big mule deer in the lower 48 without a statewide tag, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what else I would put above it. Each state's got a great unit to shoot a big deer, and the Paunsaugunt's probably one of the best ones in Utah.
In areas or in states that you can actually acquire tags outside the draw, be it conservation or landowner tag, it's got to be one of the top, if not one of the top areas, if not the top area.
Mm-hmm.
You killed that giant there years ago with your bow, Garth. I mean, that was like 220. I was down there helping out on a muzzleloader hunt a couple years ago and seen some absolute giant bucks. I mean, I applied for it in the draw, probably never draw it. But I mean, here's a chance where you can buy a raffle ticket and win the fully guided hunt by just going to our website and buying a ticket and having your name in the hat.
Yeah,
Yep.
April 30th is the deadline for that. So.
And like you say, it's fully guided, so you don't even have to worry about the guide or anything like that. You just show up, gun in hand, show them to me.
Yep. Heck, we appreciate everybody's time tonight. And like we say, this is our full-time job. So use your onX Elite membership, come over to Huntin Full, and let's help you out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. We are going to do one more class with the folks at Huntin Full, kind of talking about OTC and leftover tags. That will be, I believe it's May 22nd. We have that up on our website. So if folks are interested in that, you can get signed up now. And of course, we'll send out reminder emails and all that next month as the time gets closer. So thanks again, everybody, and hope you have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.